Most certainly, there is no pragmatic, no realistic, no practical, and no justified definition of terrorism even till this date. If you study the etymology of terrorism, meaning if you want to know from where did this word terrorism come, what is the origin of the word terrorism, so you will find that this word terrorism can be traced back to the French language. And in French language, this word was very commonly used between 1793 and 1794 by the French government, and it was known as terrorisme. Terrorisme, and their system was called la terreur, meaning the reign of terror. What does it mean? So terrorisme is, again, if you study the origin of the word, it is taken from a Latin word, terror and terrori. In Latin language, terror means fear, dread, and terrori means to frighten somebody. Historically, this concept of getting frightened and calling it as terror is traced back to a condition that occurred in Rome 105 BC, 105 years before Jesus Christ, may peace be upon him. The Romans, they apprehended, they were fearing an attack when the Cimbri warriors were approaching them. And in Rome, a condition was declared. Like in India, once there was a condition declared by our former Prime Minister Indira Gandhi as emergency in India. So when the Romans in 105 BC, apprehending an attack by the warriors of Cimbri, they declared a condition known as terror Cimbricus, meaning the people of Cimbri are creating a panic and terror for the people of Rome. And if you understand the history of this word terrorism, you will be surprised to know that terrorism was referred to the actions of the French government against its own people. Meaning, terrorism was an official action. It was not to go against the government, but it was the force used by the French government in 1793 and 94, when the French government terrorized its own population, when they threatened their own population, that was called as terrorism, meaning it had an official definition. And in the history, we come to understand, first time this word terrorism was used by a private person, not by the government agency or a government, but by a private person. And this person was the founder of People's Reprisal Party in Russia, and he was the first one to use the word terrorist to refer to himself in the year 1869, and his name was Sergei Nechayev. Sergei Nechayev was a radical activist, was a political activist of Russia who referred to himself as terrorist in the year 1869, and this, according to all historical sources, is the first time that any non-government person, any non-government organization used for itself. And later, in the year 1870, in 1869, Sergei Nechayev, he used this word terrorist for himself. He said, I am a terrorist. And he said, my concept is terrorism. Then this word was popularized by a German radical author. His name was Johann Most. Johann and M-O-S-T, Most. Johann Most. In his book, he wrote a book by the title, The Advice to the Terrorists. In this book, he popularized the term terrorist for people who are not related to government of a place. If you study the conditions, you will understand that these people in Russia and Germany, they at that time, that is in 1869 and 1870, they knew the word terrorist as a justified force that is used for a just cause and which the governments use.